Welcome to the Great Awakening Show. I am Joanne, Divine Life Yogini, and on this week's show, we have Dr. Serge Obolensky Beddington-Behrens. Dr. Serge is an Oxford educated transpersonal psychotherapist, spiritual activist, and educator. In the 1980s, he co-founded the Institute for the Study of Conscious Evolution in San Francisco. And for the last 40 years, he has conducted spiritual retreats all over the world. Author of Awakening the Universal Heart, Gateways to the Soul, and Amazing Grace, Memoirs of a Transformational Journey, he helps people awaken to spiritual activism.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Serge, welcome to the Great Awakening Show.
Thank you, Joanne. It's a great pleasure to be on your show. And I want to say what wonderful long hair you've got.
Oh, thank you.
I believe in long hair.
Yes, definitely. Like the Indians, it was their antenna, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, Serge, we are so honored to have you here for all of your divine wisdom and knowledge that you're going to share on your vast, life of spiritual activism. And we're going to get to that later on because I love that word. I just think it's so needed in the world today. But Serge,
well, I don't know about great wisdom or great sort of whatever, but in a humble little way, simply because I'm older, I've learnt one or two things through all my mistakes, and I've made an enormous amount as I have. Wait, if I can find. Yes.
Yeah.
As I can find in my book, that this book is all about the mistakes I made.
Amazing Grace. I love that title. And we're going to get to that book in a minute. Yeah. We're going to get to all the beautiful questions about your incredible book. Great. Yeah. But Serge, at this time, I believe humanity is going through a great awakening. This has been prophesied by the Mayans, the indigenous, the aborigines, the indigenous Indians. So many have said about this time that we're in is a great awakening for the whole of humanity. So what does this mean for you and for all of us at this time?
I think that the Great Awakening means that a new kind of human being is emerging who is more fully human. I don't believe that just because we're born a human being that we're properly human. I think our humanity is something that we need to graduate into. And there's a lot of people on the planet, especially those who are starting wars at the moment, who haven't yet made the graduation from a separate, paranoid being to feeling one with all the earth. And so for me, Joanne, what is awakening is more dimensions of who we are, more heartfulness, more mindfulness, more soulfulness, and then it's infiltrating into our work. And so we can begin to change the world from within. As more awakened people become CEOs of companies, move into the political world.
Yes.
So it's a very subtle process. And my experience is that the more crises and difficulties we're going through, and we're going through a lot of them, and do you notice the picture behind is an old Cusco painting. It's the descent of the dove of peace. And I think we need this.
Yeah.
But the more crises we're going through, the more what I call the help forces or the grace forces or the sacred forces are here to help humanity move into new places.
Yes.
Where where we can be more connected to ourselves, more connected to others, more connected to animals, more connected to our planet. And so it's talking about a changed world. And what I see happening at the moment is that just as the old world is falling apart, and it needs to, because the system can't be fixed, it needs to fall apart before it can be reassembled at a new level. And so it's both falling apart and at the same time a new thrust, a new upsurge, to pun on my name, an upsurge, that an upsurge is happening of a new consciousness. And I think that that's very exciting. And luckily, on CNN News, they don't talk about the new upsurge, because if they did, those forces in the world that want the old order to stay,
Yes,
that sort of profit by the system's inequalities, they would do their most to prevent the awakening.
exactly.
But for those forces, we're just a bunch of silly old sort of hippy dippies whose hair is too long, and we're all talking about spiritual nonsense. But that's what is absolutely appropriate. So then we can work a bit behind the scenes as antidotes. I see that the awakening person, Joanne, is an antidote to the evil, the darkness, the shadow, the terrible things that are going on. And there's a lot of terrible things going on at this
That is so true, Serge. That is so true. And it's so true what you say about the more that we awaken, the more that we raise our vibration and, and do the inner work and raise our consciousness individually, then, as you said, all them systems, that the old ways, the old systems have to come down. Educational, the food, the pharmacy, politics, all of them, they have to fall because they're old. They were propped up by the old order of ways of the old agendas. But now we're going to come in. And as you said, these awakened people are going to take their places of them evil ones that all they wanted was to put money in their pocket and not do for the good of all. They were service to self. They were not service to others. And in this energy now, this is unity consciousness and love awareness. We have to look after everyone.
And also, Joanne, I think Gurdjieff, a spiritual teacher of the early sort of 20th century, said, man does not awaken unless hit by a shock bigger than the sum of his own inertia, or sort of women. But in those days, they only talked about men because women weren't supposed to awaken at the early part of the 20th century. It was a bit more chauvinistic. And I think that the shocks that we're having in war and financial shocks and ecological shocks, while
medical shocks,
terrible, they are actually activating a new kind of togetherness. And if they don't kill us, Joanne, and they can,
I know.
I think that they're helping us to realize that we've got to get our stuff together. And I know in my own life, I've been sort of meandering along, and then suddenly a shock has happened, and it's made me wake up. Wow, I've got to deal with this. Wow.
Yes.
I can't sleepwalk anymore. I've got to deal with this.
That's right. And it's almost like the contrast and the darkness and all of the bad things that are happening in that 3D is shocking us, as you say, is bringing us to the precipice. I always say this. It's bringing us to the precipice and forcing us to awaken, forcing us, through the contrast, through the darkness, forcing us to see the light, forcing us to awaken and say, no, enough is enough. We can't have this anymore, because it's bad what they've been doing to us, to humanity, locking our spirituality down, locking our divinity down, telling us we are worthy, we are sinners, we are nothing, we are useless eaters, as they would say, but we're not. We've got that divine spark of God, goddess within, You know, we're made in the image. We are creator beings, you know, and we have the Kundalini and the energy to create this world anew.
Yay.
Brilliant. So, Serge, please tell us about, I want to know about your awakening, your transformation, you know, how you let go of attachments and false narratives, because, you know, it's the ego, isn't it? The force attachment, everything. That's a tough one. Tell us a little bit about your transformation and awakening.
Well, I think that one of the catalysts, Joanne, that helps us awaken is that we're unhappy. Our lives don't work. We may have things okay on the physical plane. I had great abundance on the physical plane. I was born into great privilege. My mother was a Russian princess.
Wow.
My father was a very wealthy man. So we had 14 servants for the two of them and me. But it was all abundance on the outer level, but not the inner level. So what made me want to awaken was that I found the world that I was schooled in and that I stayed in until I was about 24, where I felt I was a little bit elitist because I'd been to a posh university, had a posh background, knew posh friends, but it didn't feel right for me. And as it were, I don't think that we choose to awaken, but I think our soul inside us gives us little signals, you know, hey there, you know, that there's another world out there, come and sort of move into it. I think as Jesus said, many are called, but few are chosen. I think awakening calls us all, but few of us choose to choose it.
Yes.
That we don't want to take the responsibility. And I guess I chose to take the responsibility because I wanted to do two things. I wanted to find out who the Serge really was underneath this elitist, chauvinistic, patriarchal, narcissistic, upper class twit or toff or whatever you want to call it. I was very superior to everyone else. And I guess I wanted to be an ordinary human being, which actually we all are. I wanted to find my divine ordinariness because I was conditioned by my parents to believe I was special for no other reason but that I was their son. And then you go into the world and you suddenly find that everyone doesn't agree that you're special. And actually, it's just as painful as being told you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Because you go into the world and everyone doesn't bow down to you. And I thought, why is this? I go into a room and everyone doesn't stand up and sort of acknowledge the great Serge. So then I had to learn humility, that I was an ordinary person. And I guess far from seeing my spiritual journey as something grandiose, I think it's an initiation into my sacred ordinariness.
Beautiful.
I become more and more ordinary and perhaps a tiny bit more humble. And whenever I meet people who say, I'm enlightened, whatever that means, please don't ask me that question.
No, I won't. No.
But whenever they say, I'm enlightened, I'm always a tiny bit suspicious. So anyway, I guess that awakening was letting go, sort of a question that you asked me, Joanne, was how do we let go the false narratives that keep us from awakening? And I think it's about moving into a place where I, Serge, can stand behind me and disidentify, and I see the patterns, I see the projections I'm sort of putting out, and I see those parts of me that don't really cohere with the me that I'm wanting to become. So how did I get rid of my narcissistic personality disorder? By becoming aware of it. It takes time. You don't let go all these things at once. Rome was not built in a day. Tigers don't lose their spots. You know, it takes a long time.
Yes.
So sort of one way is that I stood back and I observed parts of me that didn't work, and I tried to sort of reel them in, like kind of fishing. You know, you catch a fish, you reel it in. And so you see yourself and you're not identified sort of with yourself. And then I also had to work through my woundedness.
Yes.
Because we're all wounded. We all come into the world, Joanne, with different kinds of wounds. And I came in with my set of wounds, and I needed to do a lot of therapy of various kinds. I've been trained in all sorts of areas as a rebirther, as a past life, spirit release, relationship therapist. But I needed to do all those things because I had to heal myself. And I think if you heal yourself, it's easier to heal others because you can have empathy with people with similar wounds. So a lot of the clients I would draw to me were people with wounds sort of similar to myself. And then when we do that, when we let go our personal false narratives, then we can challenge the false narratives out in the world.
Yes.
The sort of story, the old story for humanity.
Yeah.
The purpose is to become rich and famous and be on Big Brother or Get Me Out of Here. Or sort of love story. Or I mean, I'm joking, but an enormous amount of pain is because people don't feel that they've made it in the world. You know, I'm not famous enough, I'm not rich enough. It's the old narrative.
That's the ego as well, isn't it? You know, letting the ego run your life. Because every day, we've got two, haven't we, within us, the ego and the true self. So it's a real battle. You know, I think the dark night of the soul is learning to, not allow your ego to take over so much and to stay in that beauty, in that righteousness of the true self within, which is,
I guess that, we see, Donald Trump is a very important healing force in the world.
Definitely. Yay!
That's a weird thing to say. But who do we know who better embodies everything that is worst about the runaway ego?
Yeah.
That refuses to be lassoed. He doesn't know how to lasso himself.
That's right.
So he comes on sort of television and he spouts nonsense. And the name of the game for me is not to be ego-less, as the Hindus say, oh, my son, you need no ego. If you come to my ashram, I teach you no ego. I actually don't believe that. I think
so do I. I don't believe that either. We need ego to live in the 3D world.
Exactly, to live in the 3D world, but it needs to be our servant and not our master.
That's right.
And so we don't obliterate it, but actually, if I look at my own life, Joanne, I didn't have enough ego. My ego needed to become healthier because I tend to see all ego as sort of bad and we've got to get rid of it. No. Actually, as you just said, we need it, but we need a healthy ego.
Yes.
Then when we have a healthy ego, it's much more willing to let go and
Yes.
allow the higher self or our soul to come and take charge. But we need to be activating our higher self or our soul. Because if we just let go the ego and we haven't activated or worked on ourselves to evolve a higher self, then we're going to let go sort of into nothingness.
Yes. That is so true.
So it's like we'll need our ego until we've developed a deeper part of myself.
Yeah. And that leads me on to another question. Why is it essential for us to engage in inner work? They call it shadow work, or to heal, healing ourselves, to lessen this lessens the ego identity, doesn't it? Please give us some inner work, some tools to do that as well, because I know that it's so important. I've been doing that for many, many years. We all go through our dark night of the soul, but it's very important, as you said, to raise that. How do we raise that higher self? How do we do that?
Well, there's two things we do. One, we work at activating those qualities inside us that reside inside our heart, but don't come out of hiding until our heart begins to awaken, i.e., qualities of love, and wisdom, and vision, and kindness, and compassion. And we need to work at bringing these out of hiding. And there's many ways that we do it, sort of meditation, being in a relationship where we have to practice kindness. I think being in a close relationship is one of the greatest spiritual awakening tools, because a close relationship brings up everything.
Yes.
It brings up all our stuff. We can't avoid it.
That's correct.
And the other thing that we need to do, Joanne, I think, is to work with our dark side or our shadow. So what is our shadow? Our shadow is what we don't know about ourselves. I know that I'm a lazy old so-and-so. I know that I'm disorganized. I know that I'm terrible at dealing with practical things. That's not my shadow. I know that. My shadow is what I don't know about myself.
Yeah.
And how we find out is we see what we have a charge about in the world. I will see a man and I'll have a charge. I'll feel very critical. Say I'm very fat. Actually, I'm not, but say I am. And I see a fat man in the street. I can see that awful big fat tubster there. What a ghastly person. So I'm projecting what I don't want to own in myself onto this poor person in the street.
That's right.
So what I need to do is own my own fatness, or own my own selfishness, or own my own capacity to be manipulated.
Because we're all a mirror, aren't we, Serge? We're all a mirror. We're all a mirror to each other. We're, all human beings in relationship, we are all a mirror to each other, and we show each other our dark and light aspects. That's what relationship is.
Yeah. So that I see that sort of most of us live in a tiny little sort of arc of consciousness, but the name of the game is how do we expand it? So we live in an enormous arc of consciousness. Now, all this stuff around here, both the more spiritual aspects and the darker aspect, they're all in shadow. So how do we activate more of who we really are and become kinder, more gracious, more selfless, and less projecting of our shadow onto other people?
Yes.
a sort of, I thought I was a kind person. And the other day, I went out to dinner with some people who I didn't know very well, and I just observed that I had unkind thoughts towards a particular person at the dinner table. Now, I was able to grab those unkind thoughts. I saw them sort of, coming out of me onto this person, and I saw it happening. So I was able to get my butterfly net and grab it and pull them back and activate kindness.
Wonderful.
And then think, why did I have those thoughts towards this man? Because he had aspects of himself that were inside me and I didn't want to look at them.
Exactly.
So I thought after dinner, thank you for having been at that dinner, because you really helped me see a part of myself.
Wow.
So the name of the game is to take back these negative thoughts that we were all trained in. I was trained to be very critical of people.
Yes.
My mother told me to be very critical. Oh, he's so badly dressed. Oh, that man is so awful. Oh, it's so terrible what's happening. We need to rein that back.
And it's so important. It's so important to, this is what the awakening is, to have awareness of that. You had instant awareness of that. Why am I thinking this way? So it's so important.
Yeah.
As a yogini, it's like your thoughts, your feelings, your words, and your actions. And when you become conscious of them, then you can make them into sacred thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Yeah. So that they go out and they produce goodness in the world, because everything we give out always comes back to us. So by giving out that negativity, you're hurting that man, but also you're hurting yourself because it's coming back to you. Yeah. This is why we have to be consciously aware of our every thought, word, and action, so that, and not be at the mercy of them, not be the victim of it, but be conscious, being consciously in control of it, making them all sacred.
Beautiful.
Very, very.
And I just like to say that I think we need to say that we need to see the word sacred outside of its sort of spiritual, incense burning, church going,
Yes.
sort of being at bed and saying your prayers.
Yes.
And kind of see sacred in a sort of earthier sense, that sort of when we recognize the isness of anything, when we walk out in nature and we see the beauty of nature,
that's
then
sacred.
we're being a space for honoring the sacredness.
Yeah.
But it's been too engaged with that disease that some people have that I call spiritualitis, or sort of conspiratorialitis, that sort of puts a kind of sort of gaudy.
Yes.
Sort of
holier than thou, holier
than thou, exactly.
Because we're not holy. I've been fighting with that all of my life. As a yogini, It's like, oh, I can't do that because I'm a yogini, wouldn't do that. No, we are light, we are dark, and we are here in this world of duality to find the balance, to find the wholeness, to come back to that wholeness, isn't it? And have that and embrace our darkness, because it's a part of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. To be, I like the word, to be divinely ordinary.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's beautiful.
To be divinely ordinary. Because if we're too divine, then we're all, oh, yes, I'm so holy.
Exactly.
And if we're too ordinary, then we're caught in the system.
Yeah. We are human and we are divine, aren't we?
How do we avoid being caught in the system? How do we stand outside the system so that we can be the creator of a new system? And in the last chapter of my book, here's my little
Amazing
book
Grace.
again. In the last chapter of my book, I look at what's going to happen in the world, and I sort of believe that a new system is going to emerge.
Yes.
And I talk about 25 new qualities of that new system that's going to emerge. But I think it may be challenging. I think that we may have to, as you said earlier, Joanne, go down a little deeper.
We have to go through the darkness to get to the light.
Into the collective dark night of the soul. And I think we're going through a collective dark night of the soul. All of
so do I,
humanity.
individually and collectively. But also, Serge, and I say this a lot, we can't build the new on a dark, faulty foundation. All of this evil and all the badness has to come out. It has to come up to the light for us to see that. It's like the darkness within us. We have to look at we are a mirror to the larger world. So the darkness has to come up, so that we can begin again. Because there's some dark evil forces out there, aren't there, Serge?
They are. I think that both personally and out on the planet, when newness comes, it casts its darkness in front of us, so that the new order that's beginning to emerge is throwing its shadow, because we can't get there until we deal with what you call the evil and the darkness.
Yes.
And I think that these two wars are really bringing up a lot.
Yes.
Because I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh, the peace activist, the Vietnamese peace activist, who once said, it's not only the soldiers who have war inside them, all of us do. And so to some extent, you and I and all of us have to do work to heal that warlike part inside us.
That is so true, Serge. That is so true. Because look, Serge, look what it's doing. Yes, look what it's doing, right? It's segregating humanity. In every single city, there's all them protests, and they're all you against me. It doesn't matter. It's one religion, one country, against each other, but we're all the same. They don't understand the overseers, or the evil ones, if you want to call them that. That's what they've been doing to humanity for millennia. They have been segregating us, pitting us against each other, man against woman, black against white, religion against religion, country against country, because if we were united, we would see that 1% globalists who are ruling over us and do not have humanity's best interests, right? Because they just hold the money. We would see that together we only want peace and love that's all we want, isn't it?
And the challenge, but it's a very challenging story. You don't, a bad man does not become good by telling him he's a bad man.
No.
You can talk about soul to Trump, but it's not going to do much to convert him. So it's a very, very subtle game, and it needs to happen sort of gradually. And I like you, believe that the world's wealthy do somehow control a lot of things, and that things are happening behind the scenes that we don't understand. Like, I'm sure that sort of Putin has played a big role in starting the Hamas-Israeli war, because it suits him, because then America is only going to pay, to help Israel, and it'll stop
Well, I believe, I
They-
truly believe there's a deep state behind all of it, you know, and they pay for both sides because it's the military industrial complex. They make
Yes.
money from war.
Yes,
It's terrible.
exactly.
It's terrible. But this is the thing. This is the awakening. This is the thing. You know, this is the thing about this awakening. It has to get that back. And I believe, this is what I believe will happen in the next, especially next year. The threat of world war, nuclear World War III, will be so intense. It's going to be like you know, it just will be so intense. In America, they'll have air raids, yeah, and because now these nuclear warheads can actually come to every country in the world. So this is the thing, and it's almost going to get to the point where people are going to be drafted, yeah, because it's going to get that bad, right? The Cuban Missile Crisis will be nothing compared to this, but I believe that it will almost get there, and this is going to wake up so many people, right? It's going to wake up the masses, because they're going to go, oh, we don't, and all the warmongers, the deep state military industrial warmongers, people will see the leaders who are the warmongers, and then they will see the ones who are for peace. You know, it's going to awaken a lot of people, but it won't happen.
It's very interesting, isn't it, Joanne, that
Yeah.
the warmongers, that they're all old men. That they're all old men. I've got a word for these warm sort of mongers. I call them pathocrats, because they're sort of pathological narcissists.
Exactly.
And if you look at Putin or Netanyahu or Trump or sort of any of
Biden's the worst. Biden's the worst.
or
All of
the
them.
Ayatollah of that they're all sort of malevolent, sort of vicious. I'm not going to comment on Biden. I don't see him as malevolent and vicious, but I do see him as part of the system despite himself. But I don't put him in the category of malevolent and vicious.
He's a criminal. He's a criminal. Yeah, he's a definite criminal. But they all are. You know what we need, Serge? We need women.
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful, divine, feminine women in more places, healed healers in more positions of power and influence, because we are so in touch with the divine, and all we want is peace and unity and love, because we want a lovely earth for our grandchildren and our legacy to go on in this world. You know, this is what it's, but this is the time of the divine feminine rising up. It really is. This is divine.
And so sort of what is coming up, of course, is that, you know, we're seeing that women are having a terrible time in, you know, by the Taliban in Afghanistan and in Iran, you know, that they're shot in the eye for standing up for their
terrible
rights. And this is, and I absolutely agree with you that the new story that we're entering into will be a shift out of the patriarchy,
yes,
about war and destruction, into a new the emergence of the sacred feminine. Now,
yes,
not all women are part of the sacred feminine.
no,
a lot of
because
women have to learn
that's
that.
right. A lot of them
Like
are wounded.
can help sort of teach that by embodying it, as I can see that you do. But because sort of women are the peace, you know, are the peacemakers.
That's right.
And the truth is that the people in the countries, apart from the right-wing fanatics in all the countries, the people don't want war.
No.
It's the leaders who take them into
Exactly.
war.
It's the government and the leaders that want war. We don't want that. We just want a safe, beautiful earth to bring up our children and enjoy and celebrate, you know, each other while we are here. This is what we want, you know. It's so important. But many people, as you said, the woundedness, I want to get on to, how can someone wounded in love heal their precious heart? Oh, wounded anyway, how can we heal that heart? Because, you know, Rumi said, woundedness, Rumi, yeah? The wound is where the light enters. I love that saying.
And Achilles, who was the fastest runner of the Greek gods, was wounded in the heel. So our wounds are our catalysts for waking up. And if I look at myself, it's the many wounds I've had and the need to heal them that has helped in my waking up. So I wrote a 320-page book called Awakening the Heart. I wrote that book 10 years ago. And how do we heal the wounds in our heart? Well, we have to go into the wounds and feel it. So when I work in a therapy session with someone who says, you know, I feel enormous pain, I've just been hurt, you know, the man I love has just left me. I say, go into the pain, take it into your heart, and know that your deeper heart has the capacity to heal, because our hearts on the outer edges are wounded, Joanne, but inside they have a capacity for healing. So we need to know how to activate the healing capabilities of our hearts, you know, for the world, but especially for ourselves. So I always find that if one experiences the pain fully, you know, loss or, you know, the death of someone that we love, that we need to take it into our heart and we need to feel it and we need to go into it. And then if we really go into the feelings, it'll take us through and out the other side. And I think that that's a very important thing. And as you just said, to see the wound as the ally and not the enemy.
Yes.
And because our wounds are what give us strength. And there's so many beautiful quotes by sort of Rumi that I used in my book.
Beautiful.
But, yeah, so that there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And I'm working at the moment helping a lot of people who have wounds. And by the way, I just want to quickly say that if there's anyone listening to this program and they would like to spend a free hour with me, please get in touch. Just send me an email. My email address is info.sergebb@gmail.com. INFO, S for sugar, ERGEBB@gmail.com. And my website, if you want to get onto it, is www.sergebeddingtonbehrens.com. Or if you just Google my name, you'll find 100 sort of things about me.
Wonderful, wonderful. And where can people read your book, Serge?
Oh, what?
Amazing Grace.
Yes, Amazing Grace. I think I'll tell you what I think's the most interesting thing about it.
Beautiful.
Though I say it myself, I've written 2 books on how to transform.
Yes.
How to awaken the heart, how to awaken the soul.
Yes.
This is my journey and my struggles. So it makes it a little bit more pertinent.
Beautiful.
That a lot of people,
Serge, please tell us about your book. Well, everything that we've been talking about in this beautiful interview has been, you know, you have written it down in your transformational journey. So tell us more about your book.
Well, I tell you, I think what's interesting about this book is that most spiritual autobiographies just sort of talk about meeting wonderful gurus who say, open your heart and love, but they don't deal with their own neuroses and difficulties. This is a very human journey. I'm very open about myself. I share the dark side of myself, and I make it a fun story. And it's a fun story with lots of pictures in it.
Oh, lovely.
And so I think it's interesting because I think that people who write sort of autobiographies or memoirs, that they often glorify themselves.
Yes.
I don't think I've done that, for the simple reason that there isn't much to glorify anyway.
Oh.
But because I think that it's important to tell a story that is genuine.
Yes, and to speak the truth. Yeah.
While we can romanticize the spiritual journey and how wonderful it is and everything, and I've got a chapter on things to help you on the journey, it's actually very challenging.
It is
very difficult.
It is.
And we need to know, are we going to be a lone wolf? Are we going to become a Buddhist or a Sufi? Are we going to sit at the feet of spiritual masters or choose a master? Or are we going to go our own way? And I have chosen to go my own way. And I haven't gone the way of religion. I think I'm spiritual.
Yeah.
But I'm not religious, because
No.
at school, I always had pious clergymen saying to me, be ye mindful that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, and do not forget to be as perfect as your Father in heaven was perfect.
It's ridiculous.
And I remember sort of hearing one of those sermons and turning round to the guy sitting next to me and sort of raising my eyebrows and a master saw me, and I got beaten for unholiness. I got 6 at the best, because when I went to school, you still had the beatings. You still got beaten for being
you know what I believe. I believe that it's because I used to have a guru as a yogini and everything, and I believe you get to a certain point where you've looked at many religions and you've done so much work, and you've gone on through your dark night of the soul, and in the end you don't, my guru used to tell me, you won't need me in the end. Yeah. And it's true. In the end, something happened and I stopped being with him, and I went into my own cave, and I went within to the guru within, the Buddha within, the spirituality, the God, goddess within, which is the higher self, isn't it? Which is the divine spark. And everything, I know it's cliche, but it's true, because everything comes from within. That's why you have to go within to unlock that door, of the higher self.
To help before we're ready and able to go within.
Yeah,
I mean, and I think that the name of the game, Joanne, or the name of the game for me, was to realize in my journey, what do I need now? Do I need to go on a vision quest? Do I need to go and sit in sacred temples? Do I need to go back to Jungian psychotherapy because I'm still angry with my mother and that's affecting my relationship with the divine feminine? Do I need another girlfriend? Because my journey is a lot about all my dramas with women. Because early on, I had a very beautiful mother who was cold. So I used to fall in love with beautiful women who were cold.
Yes.
And that was my pattern. So when I would meet a woman who was warm and kind to me, I wouldn't be interested.
Yes.
And I always thought that the cold, beautiful woman would heal me. And so I went to all these women thinking sort of, no, I went to them posing as a healer, posing as a savior to all these women. Oh, the big Serge, because I'm quite a big chap, you know, and in my young days, I was quite a cool dude, you know. I will save you, but actually I wanted them to save me. And the truth was that no one saved me. And I realized that no one can save us.
No, we have to save ourselves. We save ourselves.
Yeah, that we save ourselves. So, anyway, my memoirs, they're also rather funny. I've got a lot of funny stories, and I've got
beautiful.
Because I used to be a ski racer when I was young, and I have a story where I was doing a downhill and I went off course, and suddenly I found myself held up by angels and being carried in slow motion in the air.
Wow.
Being saved from sort of crashing onto rocks.
Amazing.
And then I did the rest of the journey in slow motion, and everything happened in slow motion. And I did this incredible time in this race, and a whole new consciousness came into me, and I was only 19. And I've got a story.
Wow. Beautiful.
I was in Indonesia, and I met a nice couple for sort of dinner in the hotel that I stayed at. And then the next morning I was due to have had coffee with them, but I was terribly ill. So I spoke to him and said, look, I'm incredibly ill. I've got this high fever. I can't have coffee. And I had a very rare tropical disease. And this man happened to be a specialist in this disease. He came to see me. He diagnosed what was wrong at once. So I immediately got the treatment for this disease.
That's a miracle. That's unbelievable.
And so I realized that if we're on the path, Joanne, that there's a lot of synchronicity.
Yes.
That the force is with us, that the good force, because there's all sorts of forces in the world. It's not a good force that's with Putin or Netanyahu.
But there is good forces. That's right.
Or Biden,
there's good forces within all of us. Yes. It's beautiful. The divine force. And Serge, and this is Serge. That is, you know, finding that goodness within. Yeah, that divinity, that spiritual activism. Tell us just for the last little bit about spiritual activism, because I love that phrase. That is so beautiful.
Okay, for me, spiritual activism or sacred activism is a marriage of two kinds of activism. It's a marriage between the person like you who wants to bring sacredness into the world, who is a force for a new spiritual order to come into being, who wants to seed the collective unconscious with ideas of love and truth and peace. And it's the marriage of that person with the person who stands in the rainforests and confronts the loggers cutting them down. It's a marriage with the person who is a very practical, who invents a new way to irrigate deserts, or who will find a new way to bring green energy into a particular country, or the peacemakers who will go into war zones and confront the tribes and sort of find a way of integrating these warring tribes.
Yes.
So it's the sort of mixture of heaven and earth, and it's being of service, both in a
being of service to humanity,
in the world way,
yes,
and in an inner way. So it's the marriage of the inner and outer, and being an antidote, so that your life, Joanne, is taking a stand and trying to do one's best to live or to embody the kind of world that you'd like to see come into being, but you just don't do it in a woo-woo up there way, but you do concrete things.
Yes. Yes.
And, and my concrete thing is I write books about it. I give lectures about
and
it.
I think,
I don't go into atheists and confront others.
That's right. And I think when you say spiritual activism, fighting for a cause, but doing it with love, always coming from the heart, never always doing it like that. That's beautiful. Love activism, spiritual activism, standing up, but doing it in a righteous way. Yeah. Strong, because love can be strong. Love is not woo-woo. Love is not all unicorns and everything. Sometimes love can be quite cutting and strong, as a mother would set boundaries for her son, not to do this. But it's important, but it's always done with love, but it's strong love. This is what we need at this time for this great awakening, I believe,
I mean, yeah. There's many kinds of love and there's many levels of love. But there's a wonderful book called The Ways and Power of Love by someone called Piotr Sorokin, a Russian man. It's a very long book, but it's absolutely beautiful about love. And I think that we all need to learn to go deeper into the heart of love.
Yes.
I mean, I talk about in my book that I suffered because the love my mother gave me was not a love that nourished me enough.
Yes.
She soothed me and cuddled me and comforted me. But then when I got a little bit older and I wanted to be heard and seen and breathed, she didn't have it in her to give me that kind of love. And we can't give to anyone anything that we haven't yet brought to life.
That's so true. That's so true, Serge. And also, but her parents were probably just as cold to her. It goes down the generational line until it meets with someone like you, until it meets with someone like you and someone like me, because my parents were like that a little bit, they couldn't show their love. They gave me everything they could, but they couldn't tell me they love me. They couldn't say that to me. And I think that we've changed that because we've done the work on ourselves and we've overcome that. We've embraced it and we've changed it. We've transformed it. Like you say, it's your transformational journey.
Well, I'm in the process of overcoming it because I feel the journey never ends.
Yeah, the journey never ends. Yeah.
Because it's very relevant in terms of this war going on, that there's collective human traumas that exist in nations as well as individuals.
Yes.
And my grandmother had to escape from the Russian Revolution because she was part of the Russian royal family.
Wow.
So the Bolsheviks were coming at her door to murder her, and she had to sort of stuff
Imagine the trauma.
necklaces and with her tiny babies escape in a cart way, and only just made it. And it's the trauma.
The trauma.
My mother carried that. And what is breaking my heart at the moment is the trauma that the Palestinians are suffering. Because Netanyahu, to save his own skin, wants to be seen as tough, and so is responding to brutality with even more thuggery.
Brutality, which is never the way. It's never the way. As
Gandhi said, an eye for an eye makes everyone blind.
That's right.
And the tragic thing, and I feel this because my father was Jewish, and so I feel an identification with the Israel people, who are wonderful people.
Yes, they're wonderful people, but it's not them.
Wonderful people.
Yeah.
And what is going to happen is they're going to be less safe, not more safe.
Exactly.
Walls, you build up walls, but they don't guarantee security.
Yes.
Because walls can be knocked down.
Yes.
And
but that's why, Serge, that's why we have to just keep doing all people, people who are watching this, everyone who's listening, we have to keep doing our inner work and keep raising, as you said in the beginning, the ego, and raising the higher self, raising that beauty, raising that love, raising that light within, because then we become an example to help others raise theirs, which helps the whole world to raise up. This is what...
Joanne, what a wonderful lady you are. How honored I am to be having this talk with you, who is doing so much good, both on your own and sort of having this sort of talk show. I feel a lot of affection for you because you're my soul sister.
Yes, definitely. And we shall have many more talks like this. I'd love to have many more with you, Serge, definitely.
And I think I'd just like to finish then, as we're coming to an end, again, to say, buy this book.
Definitely.
It's fun. And I know I'm promoting myself, but I'm also promoting a vision that is in this book. And you can go onto my website and onto my YouTube channel and find all sorts of lectures I've given, including one I've just given called The Fierce Side of Grace, called Fierce Grace.
Oh,
that is
I love
quite
that.
an interesting one.
Lovely. That sounds...
Grace.
Fierce Grace. Yeah. That sounds amazing. Beautiful. Oh, Serge, I just want to say thank you so much for all of your wisdom and your insights, and for sharing your truth, which is really important at this time, and thank you for all of your work in awakening and helping people, to be spiritual activists. Thank you for being on the Great Awakening Show.
Thank you. Could I finish for 1 minute with just doing a little prayer?
Yes, please.
O Great Spirit, please dance in our hearts. Help us to awaken so we may be instruments of truth and love. And we pray that there be peace in the world. And we pray that there be peace in our own hearts, and that we meditate on peace. So just put your hands in the middle of your chest and just feel your heart. And just go into your heart. Your heart where your love lives. Your heart that loves you and knows you so well. Just take a few deep breaths and just let go anything that's standing in the way of love. And I'll just finish with one song.
Wow.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be free.
Yes.
May there be peace in the world.
Yes, yes, yes. So beautiful. Thank you so, so much. Thank you so, so much, Serge. That is lovely.